After being caught, after the trial, even after getting dumped out of the raft that took him from the ship down to the shore, he never really felt alone until now, until he waited to be surrounded by what chased him. He had known the physical fact of his isolation to be true, but the actual idea of being alone, which people seemed to talk on about ceaselessly, had never held much significance before. He had run as far as he could. Eventually, though, his stride broke clumsily into a kind of jog, pulling him forward to catch his own inertia until finally he gave out completely and bent over to try and heave more air into his lungs. For a moment, he didn't have time to think about looking up again, though he could hear the motion as they gathered around him, still moving with the same eerie grace that had propelled them through the jungle just seconds ago. When he did look up, what he saw was nothing human. It was like being confronted with his worst and most long-held fear, somehow impossibly specific, tangible, and real. It was not only that these figures were themselves awful to see, it was also the chase, also the veil of night, also the abandonment. It seems that nature, despite whatever human tragedy takes place within its setting, goes on doing exactly what nature always does, totally unaffected, even as the blood might drip from her branches. He'd actually thought this more than once before, when watching some ghastly thing on the news or staged in a movie. Now he found it odd to actually be in one of those scenes. Nature. He would almost call her blithe if she could understand such a word, but of course she wouldn't. She would only smile and then return to herself, leaving him, whomever, anyone, to face what god-awful thing awaits. Then, after this tangent thought had brought him a second of escape, the fear came crashing in. What brought the fear was their words, and it consumed him totally, like no other sensation he had ever known or even thought possible. He couldn't feel his body, and only knew it was there because it shook, more so with each sound, as each impossible word, spoken in quiet, roared inside him, nevertheless like a siren. "Hello, John. Hello, John." It was all of them, too many to count, all of them around him, like wraiths, like flies, like maggots, docile in their stillness, even soft, but unquestionably revolting. "Hello, John." Not quite in unison, but together enough to come in waves. "Hello, John." He was concerned, in the presence of something he already could not comprehend, but now, by some evil miracle, these things were able to know and speak his name. Evolution might have explained how an isolated group of animals, ugly as they might be, could crop up on a remote island dotted in some anonymous region of the Pacific. Hell, there were plenty of known species roaming the ocean depths that looked wicked enough to have come straight from the horror films he watched as a boy, and they were no more real monsters than the ones in the theater. But nothing, no calculation under the never-ending stars could account for the creatures of this island knowing his name, knowing him, addressing him, knowledge of his old life somehow. It was too much, this incongruent fact, a forced embrace with the absurd, with the illogical, the truly impossible is what finally broke him. There was simply no way for his mind to trace it, and as he curled over in the dark, making his body small, waiting probably for death or some other eventuality, this is what disturbed him the most and bent every one of his thoughts back to its own black center. Noticing last the spinning sensation, of balance removed. He leaned abruptly backwards and passed out.